Hey, good morning. As part of the content and curriculum for digital marketing for marketing managers, I wanted to quickly go through one of the modules that you would get in the overall course. This is one of the first ones, and it's kind of a setting the stage type module where we don't get into a whole lot of nitty gritty about management techniques or leadership techniques, but it does paint a picture of what your responsibility actually is as the leader of the digital marketing team. This is something that, in a perfect world, would be defined by a job description or by direct communication with upline. But what I've found working with client after client after client is that these things are very vague. And oftentimes people get into management positions and kind of have to figure it out on their own. And so, what this is me taking the experience that I've had over working with a number of clients in management roles in digital marketing organizations and digital marketing teams and pulling it together to outline some of the best practices. It's really what this whole course is based on. But this slide in particular is looking at the best possible qualities and the best possible areas of focus for marketing managers across all of the great people that I've worked with over the past few years. So, this is your responsibility as the team leader. First and foremost, it's your responsibility to define the ideal state of marketing production and of your team itself. So, first, you want to cast the vision. You want to be able to explain intricately and in detail to every member of your team what your team exists to do, and what's expected of each member of the team. So the department and the team exists for a certain purpose. It wouldn't exist if it didn't have a specific purpose. And it's your job as the leader of the team to really embody that purpose and at the drop of a hat be able to rattle off the exact vision of what that team is meant to contribute to the company. It's not going down rabbit holes about AI and Chat GPT. GPT. It's not getting into the weeds about tactics. It's about why the company is better because this team exists. So the next thing is, you can see in the slide, I initially had get buy-in from the top, which means if you're not the head of marketing or the head of the company, there's a chance that you're going to need sponsorship for certain initiatives, or you're going to have to submit budgets or submit plans for budgets so that you can do the things that you know your team needs to do. And the best way to do that is to make it one of your goals as the team leader to not only get buy-in and get people to nod along and agree with the fact that you might be doing a good job, but you want to get your uplines excited about what you're doing and ramp them up and make them truly believe that the company would be much worse off without your team and the functions of your team. So what you want to do is create evangelists. You want your boss and your boss's boss to be excited about what to talk. You want your boss and your boss's boss to be excited to talk about what your team is doing, what you're accomplishing, and what you're contributing to the company. Finally, make the vision visible. And this is one of the simplest things that I see leaders do wrong all the time, which is they have a very well crafted vision. Maybe it's documented somewhere, maybe it's in their head, and if prompted, they can they can rattle it off and they can talk about the vision, but it's not readily accessible to anyone throughout the company. And I think that's a big mistake, because one of the things that makes a vision so powerful is when people can understand it and start to get excited about it. And you're really limiting your reach if your only method of doing that is to have one-on-one conversations between you and somebody who possibly asked you, what's the vision of your team? so so my recommendation here, and we'll get into the tactics of all of this too, but is to make it visible. Publish it on your intranet, send a memo, have regular meetings where you, or just incorporate it into everyday conversation, or everyday meetings that you're having. You need to keep telling the story about the vision of your team time and time again, so that people are going to start buying into it and see it as a real stable thing that's a part of the company, and not just, oh yeah, John has this crazy idea that he's going to try out for a couple of months and then try something new. No, you want the vision to be stable, predictable, and known. And for that reason, you want to make it visible. Okay, so this is just getting a little bit more into details, but it's your job to define the contribution to the business. So, as a digital marketing leader, you need to be able to put into words what SEO does for the business, or what a focus on analytics is going to do for the business, or what paid search does for the business. And this obviously is the case for every tactic that's going to ladder up to the digital marketing leader. Nobody does this. And it's often frustrating because it leaves a lot of ambiguity in terms of expectations of your team. Not only are your team members going to make up their own expectations based on their experience, but everybody in the company is going to make up their expectations of your team, without you as the leader being the spokesperson for, this is what we're contributing. So be one of the few that actually does this, defines it, documents it, and puts it out there so that everybody has the same expectation about what the team is going to accomplish. So the next is framing your vision and goals in terms of actual results. This feels like a cliche to say, but again, it needs to be repeated because so few people do it. We find leaders, defining roadmaps and strategies all the time based on the activities that are being performed. So we want to launch this campaign that's going to reach this many people, or we want to focus on SEO so that we can, rise in the Google search ranking. Whatever the case may be, we find that goals and objectives are very easy to set at that level because it's just activity based. You put a certain amount of gas on a fire, the fire is going to be a certain size. But what we want to get to is, yes, those are important, and those are kind of like we call those the micro goals and micro objectives of your team. You need to be able to position those within the operations of the company itself. So yes, we're going to grow into page 1 of search results for these key phrases, but what does that actually mean for the business? Are we going to see sales increase or the number of leads increase, and how do we measure that? So as much as you can, take all of those goals that you have for your marketing operations and marketing activity and reframe them as, this is what it's going to actually produce for the company. Because when you're talking to leadership, that's what they care about. You may find some marketing nerds up there that love talking about the tactical side of SEO, but really what they're looking for is, they kind of don't care what your team is doing as long as it yields the results that they're paying for or that they expect from your team. And so very closely aligned with that is that marketing goals are business goals and business goals are marketing goals. This again is, I'm just going to kick the dead horse one more time. Marketing goals in themselves. So we talk about like increasing your page rank. That's a very narrow goal. And if you're an SEO, it's a very important goal because that's kind of what your job is. That's what you're there to do. But you have to be able to phrase it in business terms. So, talking to the CEO of your company and telling them that your pages are now on page 1 of Google is great. And that might resonate with him or her for a minute, but soon they're going to start questioning, okay, what does that actually mean? Is it worth putting all of this effort in to be on the first page of Google if nothing about the business changes? If we don't get any additional leads, additional sales, maybe we get a little bump in traffic, but it doesn't amount to anything. What's the purpose of this? And that's really what you as the leader need to be able to define. Your subject matter experts, so your SEO, your paid search specialists, your content writers, they're all going to be very narrowly focused on hitting benchmarks and KPIs at their level, which is growing page rank or boosting traffic or whatever the case may be. And it's your job to take those and kind of translate them and bundle them to be able to put them in actual business terms to say the company is going to achieve XYZ because we're going to meet our goals in marketing. All right, the next big responsibility of the team leader is to give your team the resources to do their best work. And the biggest thing is that your team may not ask for what they need. And I've seen the best and smartest marketers stay quiet about resources that they need that would actually help them do their jobs exponentially better because they're resourceful, because they've found a way to do it without that added expense or without feeling needy and needing an additional tool or possibly an intern or additional team member or whatever the case may be. But just because they're making it work, because they're smart and resourceful, you have to constantly pry and ask them if there's anything that they need that would make their job better. Then, of course, it's your job as the business leader or the leader of the team to translate that into a return. If your team is asking for a $10,000 tool, you need to be able to make the case that the return to the company is going to be at least $10,000, if not more, in some way. Next is you have to involve the specialist in purchasing decisions. This is almost a no-brainer, but I see it a lot where decisions about software are made in IT or among leadership, and they're just kind of passed down to the people who are actually working with the tools. And this is such a huge mistake because I've seen it. I've worked with the frontline marketers in these cases and seen how frustrated they are and how they grumble every time they have to open Ahrefs when what they really wanted was SEMrush. So involving specialists in the purchasing decisions is a huge benefit to making sure that you have the right resources. Then finally, invest generously, but also monitor value. And I kind of touched on this before. So there's a certain period of time where you have to bootstrap and you have to make do with what you have. I would never recommend investing money or proposing budgets that would cause you to go into unnecessary debt or stretch budgets too much if you can't prove the return. And so what this is really meant to say is the second you purchase a tool, let's say SEMrush as a tool, it's like $200 a month. It's not a small licensing fee. Maybe if you're an enterprise that is small, but to a lot of people, $200 a month for software is a relatively large investment. And it's going to feel large until you can quantify the value that it's bringing back in. So what you want to do is for every investment that you make, whether it's software or a person adding to your team or a vendor resource or whatever it is, you want to, as quickly as possible, be able to come back to the value of that and what it's bringing to the company. So yeah, it costs $200 a month, but it saves Steve, the SEO, 10 hours a week from the automations and reporting that are available in SEMrush, which means now he's available to do some more value-added work, which is kind of a return in itself. Obviously, there's sales returns too if it helps you generate more leads or whatever the case may be. But you want to monitor that value all the time. You can't just accept that because people are using SEMrush that just purchasing it is going to deliver value. You have to constantly stay on top of that. All right. The next is your job is to oversee the team's work. And this is probably the first thing you learn as a manager, or the first responsibility you feel as a manager is you're not doing the work anymore. You're overseeing other people doing the work. And this is actually going to be a common thread throughout the entire course because it's such an important concept to understand that while you're not doing the work and you don't have to be an expert in the work, you do hold accountability for it, and you do have to have an above average understanding of that particular discipline or skill set or portfolio, whatever the work is that you're overseeing, enough to be able to set expectations, enough to be able to talk about strategic details, to be able to report to your uplines about statuses and milestones and things like that. So your job as the leader is to oversee this and constantly bring it back to the vision of your team. So bullet 3 here is smart people running in different directions are more harmful than lazy employees, which means you as the overseer of all of these very sometimes siloed factions of digital marketing, it's your job to make sure that the SEO and the content writer both have the same vision, so that when they're doing their work and they're being super smart in their roles, they're still pointed in the right direction. Again, I've seen this over and over again where a team is staffed with super, super smart people, but they don't have much direction, or there's not a consolidated vision across the disciplines. And so you have one person sprinting in one direction, doing an amazing job looking at their job specifically, but it's a completely different direction than the person they're sitting next to who's doing a different type of work. And that can be more harmful and more detrimental than if you just had a couple of people who understood the vision and just were mediocre at their jobs. Because you have these people growing and growing apart, and then you start to get some resentment when you have to reel them back in to say, that's amazing work, it just doesn't fit the vision. So we need to alter things to veer back to the road that we're all on together. And so that leads into making sure that your team knows what's expected of them, and that they, in addition to you, are accountable for the results. We don't staff teams just to keep seats warm. We don't hire people just because we think they're great people. We hire people because they are there to achieve some sort of results. And it doesn't have to be all cold and businessy, but they're there for a very particular reason. They have a very particular set of skills. And you need them to know that if things go wrong, it's not as if they're going to be punished or fired or anything like that, but there is going to be accountability to say, hey, this didn't go the way that you said it was going to go, or the way that we all expected it to go. What went wrong, and what are we going to do next time to get closer to the goals that we all set together? But also make them understand that you as the leader are also accountable. They're not just out there on their own. You're co-accountable for the results of that thing. You as the leader, like it or not, you're accountable for the results of your entire team. And we'll talk about that more in the course about how to get the best out of each one of those different silos. But you, as well as the subject matter expert, are both accountable for the results. And so as you're overseeing their work, it's important for you to remember that and let them know that as well. Be ready to provide support. This kind of goes back to the previous slide. You have to be generous with resources. You have to make sure that your teams have exactly what they need to get the job done. The second you ask them to do more with less, when they can sense that there's budget for more, or what could be going into a licensing fee, maybe going into a bonus for leadership or something, there's going to be resentment immediately, and it's just going to grow and grow and grow. Okay, the last one is being a coach. And this is actually one of the most fun parts of leadership is you get to be a coach and a mentor and just help people get better at their jobs. So the benefits of this are almost, we don't even have to talk about them really. We know the benefits of being a coach. When individual team members grow, the entire team is going to grow, and the entire company is going to see the benefits of that. Be a mentor when you can. If there's an area of expertise that you have that you've brought from your previous experience, use that, bring that to conversations, help your team, push them in the right directions when they need it. But if that's not you, it's also your responsibility to connect them to mentors that can help them. If you have a skill set on your team that is completely foreign to you, which is okay, um, but they need they need help and coaching and mentorship. If you're not the right person to do that, you need to be able to connect them either with somebody within the company or an external coach or whoever it may be to help them on their journey forward. So the next part is you're not just responsible for the marketing, you're responsible for the human beings that are working within your department. And this is, again, almost a too obvious of a statement to make, but I'm going to make it anyway. The individuals on your team are human beings. They're going to have troubles at home. They're going to get sick. Their family members are going to get sick. They're going to have personal drama. They're going to have personal goals. They're going to have this whole entire human life that their job working for you is only a sliver of it. Yes, it may be a large portion of the day, but in terms of the overall, um, energy spent in their life or the overall proportion that they want this job to take in their life, it's so small. So keep that in mind. You're working with people, you're leading people. Of course, you want them to perform the way that they promised they would perform, but you have to remember they're human beings. The last thing that we'll talk about is you just have to have their back, and you have to prove it. It's not enough to just say that you'll advocate for your team to leadership. You actually have to do it. They have to see you do it. They have to see you have those hard conversations, and they have to see you, fight for the resources they need. They have to see it. If you just keep saying it, but without backing it up with any action, you're going to be an ineffective leader, and they're going to be able to see that immediately. So this is just a quick preview of one of the modules within the marketing management course. I hope it was helpful. I went on a little bit longer than I thought I was going to. It's a good test run for the primary course recording, but let me know if you have any questions, if you saw anything in here that was wildly helpful or wildly wrong, or you just have feedback of any kind. I would love to hear it, and I would love to talk to you more about some of this, the additional content that's going to be that's going to be rolling out with the rest of the course. All right, thanks everybody.